about dashboarding in SMI. This webinar will cover the creation of a simple dashboard, the basic principles behind dashboarding, and it will also show what the end result of dashboard creation could look like. Actually, I will start with that. So let me share my environment, and immediately you will see an example of a dashboard that in this case shows two KPIs, the first line fix rate and the SLA breach rate for a specific period, in this case February of this year, so last month. This dashboard has multiple tabs, and the idea behind this particular dashboard is that each tab will sort of drill down into a lower level of detail for the data shown on here. I should tell you that the creation of a dashboard takes place in a specific tool that is installed locally on the machine. Actually, showing a dashboard takes place in a browser, as you can see. Basically, this is a flash file that you're looking at that contains both the layout and the data, so that could be used outside of the domain as well. So coming back to this dashboard, what's currently shown is two gauges at the top that show the percentage of first line fixes and of SLA breaches, where the targets have been defined inside these gauges, in this case indicating that a low value for first line fix rate is bad, so everything with a lower value will be shown in red, and then eventually obviously we're aiming for this this higher part where everything is green, so everything over 80% I think it is in this gauge we're shown in green. So currently we're doing 69%. For SLA breach rate, it's the other way around. Obviously, the lower the better. So it's green when it's not over 10%, and then when it's over 20%, it's shown in red. So in this case, we're at almost 16%. So we're in the yellow range, sort of showing a warning that we're not doing as well as we want to do, but not entirely bad either. The actual absolute values are also shown in here. So in this period we had 17,000 incidents, where 11,000 something were first line fixes and 2,600 were SLA breaches. So this gives you an idea of what these percentages actually mean. Furthermore, there's a priority selector here. This, what we're looking at here, and that's shown over here, over here, and over here, shows overall value. So for all of the incidents closed in the last month, but I can also diversify by individual priority. So if I wanted to show the information for priority average, I can click on that, and then you will see the total numbers that were average, and you will see the percentages that were achieved for that particular priority. Now below here in the bottom half, you will see the absolute values, in this case first line fixes, stacked by service grouping and broken down by month. So this shows me for each month the total number of incidents that was registered and the breakdown of these incidents as far as first line fixes are concerned by group. So the total number of incidents is not entirely correct. What I said, it's the total number of first line fixes. So I can view here what the actual amounts were per service grouping. Also, this allows me to select a different month and show the values at the top here for that particular month. So if I'm interested in September of last year, by clicking on that, the gauges will show the information for September of last year. I can still use my priority selector to drill through that. Now also I have the other KPI SLA breaches in here, so I can select that, and then the absolute values will show the values for KPI breaches, for SLA breaches. So this at the highest level shows really how we've done as far as first line fix rate and SLA breach rate is concerned. Now if I want to know more, if I want to know for each of these individual service groups how they did to really start investigating where these red figures come from, if I can pinpoint the cause for that, I can go to the next tab, service details, and first of all this shows a breakdown of all of the gauges that we also saw on the first page, but broken down by service group. So I can immediately see again here for overall, but I can drill down for each of the individual priorities. Now looking at high, for example, you can see here that business service wasn't doing particularly well as far as first line fix rate is concerned, but they only had 7 incidents in that period of last month, so it might be not that interesting. It's more interesting if I look at SAP service here, or back-end service, where they had quite a few incidents, and in both instances they were in the yellow. For average, it's even more interesting because obviously this is the brunt of the incidents, and I can see here that the SAP service was doing particularly badly. So if I wanted to know more about that, there's 2 things I can do. I can click on this button here, and this will bring me to a report that I've created. It will feed that report with some information from this dashboard, so which service group, which period, and it will then show a further level of detail for that group. And even from that report, I can drill down to the individual incidents that caused the breaches. I won't go that far in this academy. But another thing I can do here is watch this in a more of a trend manner over the last 6 months to see if this is just a one-time performance issue, or if it's something that happens over time. So I can go select here filter by service, and for the I can select the service, and for that service I see the values that they've received for the last month, and I can see the actual trend for the last 6 months. I can even switch things on and off. So let's say I'm interested in SLA breaches only, then I'll remove first line fixes, sorry, like that. So what we can see here is the actual performance per month, and the line here shows the trend. So I can see that there's actually the trend is even going down a little bit. So they are slightly improving as far as breaches is concerned, but not that much. So that might be something to further investigate. And also from here, I can drill down to a detailed report for this service group. So this is gives you an idea of what the end result of a dashboard could be. In this case, only for 2 KPIs. I can have many more on them. I can have more or less interactivity, more or less tabs, and so on. Really, the sky is the limit. But let me go into the actual dashboard creation tool and show you some of the basic principles of dashboard creation and how that would work. So let me minimize this. The dashboard creation tool is the SAP Business Objects Dashboards tool here, and when I open that, there we go. I can select to create a new dashboard or open an existing dashboard for modification. For this purpose, I've created an empty canvas dashboard. So this doesn't have anything on there yet. It just has as a template a logo, a name, a white background, and some buttons that can help you, and some horizontal lines to indicate where the information is going to be. So this is just my basic Westbury layout, if you will. Now I need to start adding information on it. The way this works is that firstly you need to create some queries that retrieve the information from the SMI database. When you use dashboarding with SMI, this will also always be the first step. Create at least one query that gets its information from the SMI database. We're just using the normal SMI universes within dashboarding, although these universes have, for dashboarding purposes, been extended with specific metrics for use on the dashboard, and they have been converted to the new UNX format that SAP Business Objects has included from version 4 onward. That format is created in the information design tool as opposed to the universe design tool, which was formerly known as the designer. But basically what we do is we take an out-of-the-box SMI universe and then convert it to the UNX format specifically for use within the dashboards, and from there you can just use it. The universe itself is not any different in how it works and how you would use it. Once you've created at least one query, then the results of that query are going to be mapped on this included Excel spreadsheet. So really what we're looking at here at the bottom is in fact a locally installed Microsoft Excel tool, and that is shown inside here and has to be used when creating a dashboard. So it does heavily use Excel. I must say, although it is the locally installed Excel, not all functions are available. Some like VLOOKUP and Visual Basic macros and so on are not available, but most normal functions that you would use are available on there. Although I would urge to not do any calculations in the included spreadsheet, but rather provide the calculations inside the universe so that you know that when people create dashboards, they will always do it in the same way, always using the same definitions, and also to make it easier to backtrack the information shown on the dashboard to the actual queries behind it without having to go through spreadsheets where formulas are included and so on, and calculations are made without you being aware of it or immediately being aware of it. So for this purpose, usually what I do is for each query I would create a worksheet in the Excel spreadsheet, put some header and footer information in, maybe some background information, just a text field that tells me what that part of the spreadsheet derives its information from what query it stems and so on, just to make it easier to maintain. And then once you have the information on the Excel spreadsheet, you can then start creating dashboard components that get their information from that underlying Excel spreadsheet. So the example I will create here, the first example, the first component on this dashboard, really very easily is a combined column and line chart that would show me by incident area the SLA non-breach rate, so basically the SLA compliance rate, a percentage, compared to a target. The line in that chart will show a target of 80%. So really what I do need from my query is the incident area, the SLA non-breach rate, which is a metric included in that universe, the target of 80%, which is also included in that universe, and then a filter on the fact that the included incidents must have a close time in the last month, so really showing information for the last month. So I'm clicking on that query, and that invokes this log on screen where I have to log in to my central management server. And then I get a query selector, or a data source selector rather, where I will select universe first, and will then select from the list of available universes the universe that I want to create my dashboard on. So as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at specific UNX files. So these are converted UNV universes. They've not been created with the information design tool. They've merely been converted from UMV to UNX so that it can be used inside of the dashboard. And nothing else has happened to these universes. So I'm selecting the SMI Incident Management universe. And that will bring up the query panel, which is very similar to the query panel that you know from normal reporting in the Web Intelligence client. But it is slightly different, and the way that you go about creating a query is also slightly different as in Web Intelligence. So first of all, the data, the universe structure, the available objects and so on is exactly the same as it would be in Web Intelligence, the grouping and so on. You can immediately see here at the bottom that an extensive list of metrics have been included, and these can simply be added through REM. So if you have your own metrics, you can just extend your reporting model with these metrics. So they can be computations on database level. There can be universe rules that do calculations at query time. All sorts of things can be added, but these come out of the box. So if I open percentages, for example, there's a list of rates, percentages, like backlog rate, breach rate, non-breach rate, first-time fix rate, first-line fix rate in two versions, some targets. So there's all sorts of metrics available in these universes. Now, coming back to the query I wanted to create, I said number of incidents by area, non-breach rate by area versus target for the last month. What's very important in creating a query for dashboarding is that the order in which the objects are selected should also be the order in which the objects are forwarded, placed in the Excel spreadsheets for use in the dashboard component. So I need to make sure when I start the query that I put them in the correct order, otherwise I make myself, I can make it very difficult for myself. Also, it's important if you start including filtering and so on, and selectors in the dashboard that go through a list and say, okay, show me everything for priority 1 or for customer X or whatever, is that the sorting order must already be predefined in the query. So if you already know that you're going to be selecting and filtering on a specific value in a column, you need to make sure that that column is sorted for that value. And I do that in the query already. So that's something that you wouldn't do in a normal Web Intelligence report, or wouldn't necessarily do, because you want to have the liberty in the report to do your own sorting and grouping and so on, and the order in which things appear. In dashboarding, that is a little bit different. So first of all, the order in which I'm going to select is first of all area, and then excuse me, then I will have from metrics percentages my SLA non-breach rate. I will have the target percentage, and I will limit this to all incidents that have a close time in the last month. So I'll include a predefined condition, close time last month, in here. And then I said that you needed to sort. So in this case, we're sorting on area. Insert sort object, go to codes and select area there, and an ascending sort is what I need. So just remember, every time you create a dashboard query, you will always sort on at least one column, usually the first column. If there's multiple columns, multiple breakdowns, you would most likely have to sort on each of them. And I can click on next to get a sample result of my query, just to make sure that I've done everything correctly. So for each of the areas, I can see the achieved non-breach rate and the target percentage. So this is what I want. So I click on next, where I can set some other options, which I will leave for now, and click on OK to actually carry out the query. So we've now created the query. The result objects are included here on the on this left-hand pane, but nothing obviously is visible on the spreadsheet or on the canvas. The next step would be to create a worksheet, and let's call that non-breach rate last month, and map the results of this query to this sheet. Now when you map it, it will only map the actual values to columns in this spreadsheet, or rows. In this case I will do columns, and it will not include any header information and so on. So usually what I would do is just manually put in a header, and I will also use that header information in the actual dashboard components that I'm showing. So I'm pointing to these cells later on to get the title and the column name and so on from that. So in this case I'll put in area, I'll put in non-breach rate, or you could call it compliancy if you wanted to. I'll put in target. So this is my manually added information. Now what I'll do is I'll select area, click on insert in spreadsheet, and then select a range in my worksheet, in my spreadsheet, where I'm going to map this information to. Now when I select that range, I need to make sure obviously that the range is large enough to include all of the information, all of the areas that my query will produce. So usually you make it a little bit bigger. You try to come up with a number that you are certain will always, for each month, include all of the values that your query produces. So I think it was around 20 that my query produced, so I would probably set it to 50 or to 40. Obviously, if you know for certain that it's never going to be more than 20 or 25, you can set it to 25. And then later on, when we're creating a dashboard component based on this, we will filter out the empty rows at the end of a selection of a target range. So let me just set this to 50. So A2 to A50 downward is where I map my area to. For non-breach rate, I'll do the same for column B. So not B7 obviously, but B50. And for target, I will do the same for column C. Map it to C50. There we go. So now I've mapped the information from my query to this range, to these three columns in my spreadsheet. Something that is a little bit peculiar in dashboarding is that you do not actually see the data. You're sort of flying blind here. That's very inconvenient, so I will show you a trick in a minute where you can fix that. But out of the box, the normal workings of dashboarding, you will not see this data. The next thing I will do, I've created my query, I've mapped the results to my included spreadsheet, is to include a dashboard component on the canvas here that gets its information from that range. So I'm going to components, and there's all sorts of components included. But in this case, I said earlier, I wanted to include a combined column line chart. So I'm just dragging that on there. And this is how that will look out of the box. So the columns will represent the value and the line will present the value, and by default also markers are shown for the line. Obviously I don't want markers for the target. I just want a flat line to run through my report that indicates the 80% mark. So I will have to switch that off later on. So really what I will do is I will map area to this axis here, to the horizontal axis. I will map the non-breach rate here to the vertical axis, and I will map the target to the z-axis here, and have it run through as a line. So the secondary axis on this chart. So really, on the right-hand side here, because I've selected this this chart, you will see the properties for that chart, and that's what I'll go through now. This is where I indicate where I get my information from and what this should look like and what colors it should use and so on. The column chart title I'll type in manually, so I'll call it non-breach rate by area, and then in the subtitle something like closed last month. The category axis would be area, so I can either type that in manually, or as I mentioned earlier, I can just get the title here from my spreadsheet, so that's area. The value axis is obviously the non-breach rate here on the vertical axis. The secondary value axis, I don't have that yet because I haven't included anything on it, but that would be target. And then I'm indicating where I get my information from. I have two series. Series 1 is the non-breach rate. Series 2 is the target. So I'll click on series, insert a new series, which the series name would be non-breach rate. Here we go. And the values is everything in this row here, in this column here, excuse me. So B2 through B50. That's just what's going to be on here, and this will change later on. You'll see, because I haven't filtered out the empty columns, the empty rows yet. Then I'll insert another series, which is going to be the target, and the target is going to be placed on the secondary axis. This is important. So over here on the right-hand side. Where the values is everything in column C, so C2 through C50. And then lastly, my category label, so what's going to be shown here on the area axis is the actual areas in A2 through A50. So there we go. No information because nothing is shown on the spreadsheet, nothing is shown in here as well. But when I do a preview in a minute, the information will appear. But there's a couple of things I want to do here. First of all, I want to make sure that these axes are set to a range of 0 to 100%, because we are talking about percentages. So I'm going to go to appearance, and there I have my series, I have my primary axis, my secondary axis. Actually, I need to go into behavior first to set the primary scale and the secondary scale, but also what I can do here is indicate I want to ignore any empty rows and empty columns in the range that I selected. So I'm excluding those. The primary scale, so on this axis here, the primary axis, I will set that from 0 to obviously 100 for 100% with, let's say, 5 divisions, so every 20% is indicated. I can set it to anything I like. On the secondary scale, I will do the same thing. I will set the maximum limit to 100, and I will set the number of divisions to 5. Then on appearance, I will make sure that for the series that the columns are shown in orange. It's fine. The target line, really I want to show that in green, and I don't want to show these markers. So I'm switching off enable markers. So that will give me just a flat green line showing the target. So now I've done what I wanted to do. Go into preview mode. And there my my chart appears. So you can see a column for each area on the horizontal axis. You can see the target line running through in green, and for each individual area you can see how that area performed against the target. Now I mentioned a little bit earlier that there's a trick that allows me to actually show the information that I'm showing here on the Excel spreadsheet, in the Excel spreadsheet. So what I will do is I will create a snapshot of the data in here, the current Excel data, and I will store that in an Excel sheet. Now I think I've already got one from a previous demonstration, so I'll just overwrite that one. There we go. So now I've mapped the data in here to an Excel spreadsheet. I'll leave the preview and I can import an Excel spreadsheet, that particular Excel spreadsheet, and import the data in here. So let me just click on that button, import, go to my snapshot, and now you will see the data appear here in my included spreadsheet. There we go. And so also the chart on my canvas now shows the information. So this makes it a little bit easier to, first of all, check what you've actually done, if that is correct, and secondly, to view what you're doing in the spreadsheet. So, okay, so the next example, really an extension of what we're already seeing to be included on this dashboard, is similar information than we're already seeing, but let's have a look at how the non-breach rate by area has developed over time. So let's include a query on here that extends to this information the last 6 months, and also shows information for the last 6 months. So what I will do, once I've created that query, I will show on this dashboard, first of all, a selector that allows me to select each individual area, really have a drop-down list where I can select an area, and then show a chart underneath that shows for that area the performance for the last 6 months. So I can have a look at how they performed over time, how each area performed over time, what the development is. So for that purpose, I need really a similar query as the query that's behind here, but extended with the year-month object for close time, and also with a different filter for the last 6 months. So I need a new query. I'll click on Query Browser and just really go through the same process as I went through earlier. So go to Universes, select the Incident Management Universe. Wait for the objects to be loaded. There we go. And create my query. Now, coming back to what I said earlier about creating queries, make sure that the order in which you select things is the correct one, and make also sure that the sorting order is correct. Now, in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a filter that goes through my result sets and filter on area that allows me to select the area. So for that purpose, I really need to start with area. Within area, I will then have the year-month, so 6-month period, and then for each month in that area, I will have the actual performance. So this is the order in which I'm selecting the objects. First of all, from codes, area. Secondly, from close time, the year-month object. A predefined condition that allows me to select the last 6 months. And then the performance indicators, percentage non-breached, and the target percentage of 80%. And then lastly, I'll have to include the sorting order. So I'm sorting first of all on area, and second of all on close time. First area, second close time year-month. There we go. So click on Next to view my result sets. Might be a good idea to already have a look at how many rows of data this query will yield. At least in this situation, I'm below 200, which is the maximum set for this sample set. I have 69 rows. So I need to make sure that for every area I have 6 months. So let's say I have 15 areas times 6. I would need 90 rows. In this case, it's a little bit less, but to me, I think I would, in this case, map the results in the spreadsheet to, again, a range of 100 rows. So there we go. We can see, first of all, that it's sorted on area. So all of the values for an area per month are kept together. And then within that area, it is sorted by month in the right order. That's why we've included the sorting order for month. So click on OK. And now I have a second query here with the result objects available. So I'll do something similar. I'll create a sheet where I map the information to. Now, I'm not going to directly use the information on this sheet because, as I said earlier, I want to create a filter that goes through it and allows me to select the area and then only show the information for a particular area for 6 months. So that for that, I need to take 2 steps. Step 1, map the raw results to a sheet. Then create a selector that allows me to select the area, and then map the results of the selector, which is really a filter, to another sheet or another part of this sheet. I'll do another sheet. So first of all, I'll give it a name. I'll call it last 6 months raw. So this is the raw data. I'll put in header and footer, or headers like I did earlier, to make sure that we know what column is what. Area, close, time, month, SLA, non-breach rate, or just non-breach rate, that's what I called it earlier. And lastly, target. So I'll map it exactly the same way as we did earlier. So area to column area, map it on this range A2 through A100, close time to the next column, select non-breach rate to this column here, and the target to this column here. Okay, so I mapped the results of query to this range here. Now I'll create another worksheet, which I'll call last 6 months filtered, with the same headers. So I'll just copy those over, like so. Go back to this sheet here, and I will include a selector, really a filter object, that will go through this range here of 100 rows, this range here of 100 rows, and looks for specific, a specifically selected area, and will then copy all of the rows that match that filter to this range here, which is going to be a range of merely 7 rows, because I know that for each area that I'm selecting, I'm never going to get more than 7 rows, than 6 rows for each month, 1 row, and there's never going to be more than 6 months. So let me first start with the selector component. So I'm going to selectors. There's all sorts of selectors. You can use radio buttons or list boxes or drop-down lists in the form of a combo box. That's what I will do. So I'll just drag that on here. So this is going to be my area selector. So I'll just make that a little bit bigger to make sure that the area names will fit. There we go. The labels on here are all the labels in this column here. Now by default, if I do that, it will actually place 100 rows or 99 rows of data in this selector, but I'm going to change the type of this selector so that it will only show the unique values, and that's what I do here by selecting the insertion type, and in this case set that to filtered rows. That's what I want. I'm filtering the rows in here I'm going through this and only returning the values that I selected, but also for this selector here, for the list that appears in here, only showing the uniquely occurring values. So I'm changing that to filtered rows. Now what I'm then going to do is I'm going to use data insertion to go through this range and insert the results of my filtering in another range. So the source data is A2 through not D8 but D100, obviously. So this whole range without the column headers, whole range of data. And I'm mapping the results to this range here that I previously selected. So 6 rows below the headers. That's what I'm mapping the results to. So when I open this, I will get all of the individual areas. When I select this area, it will go through this list, this range, return all of the rows that match my selection, and copy the results to this range here. So that's what this selector does. Then thirdly, I'm going to create a similar chart as this chart, but I'm basing that information in that chart on this range here in my filtered worksheet. So for that purpose I can create obviously a new chart, but I can also copy this one and modify it to look at a different range and show slightly different information. So I've copied it, now paste it, and it pastes it exactly on top of it. So I can just drag it to the right, and there you can see that it appears. Let me just make that a little bit bigger and then send it to back, so we can place this selector on top of it, which makes it visually understandable for the end user that this filter applies to this chart. Okay, so what I need to do before I go on for this filter object is make sure that it disregards any empty rows. I forgot about that. Go to behavior and then say ignore blank cells and then the range in values. So I'm selecting that. There we go. Now my chart here, I will need to make some changes to it. First of all, the title is going to be slightly different, so it's non-reach rate by month for selected area. The category axis is not the month column or the area column that it was, but it's going to be the month column. So it's, let's go to last 6 months filtered. It's close time month. That's what I'm showing here on the horizontal axis, and the value axis is going to be the non-breach rate, but then the non-breach rate from this column here. Okay, that's part one. Now my series, the series non-breach rate now gets its name from the original worksheet, so I need to point that to the correct worksheet, and the values I'm getting not from this column here, but I'm getting it from this last 6 months filtered column here. So as I said, I know for certain that it's going to be 7 rows of data, or max 7 rows of data, so that's what I'm selecting. And the target, I'll do something similar. The name comes from this column here, and the values for this target come from this column here, D2 through D7. In behavior, we've already indicated that it should ignore any blank cells, so that's fine. The scale was copied over from the previous chart that I created, and in appearance, this also showed stayed the same. So really, this should be it. This should produce what I was expecting. So I'm creating a preview. In the background now, it is actually refreshing the queries behind this, so it will show the latest information. Now if I click on this selector here, you can actually see the individual areas, and if I select one below, you will see the information. Now I see I have made one mistake. While this does in fact show the information by month, I haven't changed the labels here yet. So I need to go back, select this, go to general, and the category labels is still pointing at this column area here, and obviously that needs to be pointed here to this range of 6 rows that shows the close time month. So that's why preview is very important. And there we go. So now you can see each individual month. And I can go through this and watch for each selected area how that area performed over time. I could even include a trend line on here that shows the trend for that individual area and how that's improving or how that's developing. So what I will do now is the same thing as I did earlier. I will make a snapshot of this data and map it, or a snapshot to an Excel spreadsheet. Actually just overwrite again the one I created earlier. There we go. And then import the data from that spreadsheet into my dashboard. Again, to make sure that I know what I'm looking at and make it a little bit easier to work with it. There we go. So I've now created an interactive chart that allows me to select a number of values to go through the different details. And one last thing, and that's what I'd like to conclude this academy with. Obviously, when most people are thinking about dashboards, you're thinking about some type of gauge or speedometer that shows information. So I will end with a gauge on this dashboard that shows the overall SLA non-breach rate for the last 12 months. So this allows me really to compare the information that I'm seeing here to the overall non-breach rate and see how that is doing. So for that purpose, I really need a third query because I want to find out what the overall non-breach rate was for the last 12 months. So creating a new query. Again on the Incident Management universe. Now in the background, and it's a little bit of an ugly error message, my session to the CMS has timed out. So the easiest way to remedy that is to just edit one of these existing queries, and then I have to log on, and logging on will re-establish my connection. And then once that's loaded, I will just cancel this, but the connection has been re-established. There we go. I just canceled building this query. And again, create a new query on the Incident Management universe. There we go. Really, this only requires one result object, which is the SLA non-breach rate, and it requires one filter, which is close time in the last 12 months. Now I don't have last 12 months as a fixed predefined condition, so I'm going to use the last X full months, and then I'll have a prompt that I need to answer. There we go, and say let's go back in time 12 months. So this will give me one figure, one number, 86% was the overall non-breach rate for the last 12 months. Okay, so let me just minimize this one. This is what I have, the SLA non-breach rate, and see prompt here as well. So really I'm mapping this to a new sheet or somewhere in an existing sheet, it doesn't matter. I'll call it overall, let's call it overall compliancy. Here we go. And just simply map this result to this one single cell here. Now I'm going to components. I'm going to go to the so-called single value components, and there you can see that there's two types of gauges available. There's some other things as well. So I'll just select this gauge here. There we go. Make that a little bit bigger. The title is going to be overall compliancy. Why not? And the date on there is going to be overall compliancy, and the value that I'm looking for is this value that I've mapped to this cell here. Now that's not all. The minimum and the maximum limit are set correctly, so it's set to 100, which is perfect for a percentage, obviously. Going to behavior, I don't want to do anything here. On appearance, really, yes, I want to set my overall compliancy to numeric, just to make sure that it only shows 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 86.0 something percent. And then what's important in such a gauge are the alerts, where I can indicate when the value achieved is green, orange, or red, or some other colors that you might want to use. So I'm going to enable alerts. I'm going to set this as percent of target. I will have to indicate that high values are good, which means green is at the top and red is at the bottom. And I can define this here and say, okay, everything from 80% onward is green. So I'll change this to 80 and I'll change this to 70. So everything between 70 and 80% is going to be in yellow or orange, and everything below 70% I will show in red. So that's how you would set such a range. Then I will indicate that I want my alerters to show both in the background here, which is this ring. I want my marker, which is the needle, to also show the color, and I want the value that's going to be shown here also in that color. So there we go. Let me just move that value up a little bit. There we go. So somewhere over there. Right, so going to preview. And I can see that my speedometer is showing the value in green, 86.01% is my overall compliancy. So now I can compare this information here to the overall compliancy if I wanted to. Okay, so this concludes this SMI Academy about basic dashboarding. The basic principles that I've indicated are, firstly, that you need to create the queries based on the SMI universes, then map the results of those queries to a range in the Excel spreadsheet, and thirdly, create dashboarding components based on information in that range that the data was mapped to, or use filters to filter through that data and store it somewhere else, so you can use it in a filtered fashion in a dashboard component as well. I would like to thank everyone for their attention, and hopefully we'll see you at the next Academy. Thank you very much.